You may already know about the phenomenon of déjà vu, which is when you experience something that feels like you've already lived through it before. For example, when you walk into a completely new cafe for the first time, but it feels like you've been there before. You might even feel like you've met that exact waiter, ordered that exact drink, and sat in that exact spot. Déjà vu can make you feel like your memories have been stolen, or that you're stepping into a parallel world where you can predict the future. However, there's a phenomenon that's the complete opposite of déjà vu, called Jamais Vu. You've probably never heard of it, or only heard about it rarely, right? Let's explore it together in today's video. To briefly explain the definition, Jamais Vu is a French term meaning never seen. It refers to the experience of encountering something very familiar, something you know well, but suddenly feeling like it's new or surreal. For instance, have you ever looked at the face of someone you know well and suddenly felt like they were a stranger? As if you were meeting them for the first time? Or have you ever felt like the road to your workplace, the elevator, or the hallway to the meeting room seems like it's been renovated overnight? Like déjà vu, jamais vu can stem from synchronization errors in the brain's neural processes. However, this phenomenon is much rarer and potentially more dangerous than déjà vu. While some instances of jamais vu are harmless and even amusing, they can cause a singer to forget the lyrics on stage, lead you to call a friend's spouse by the wrong name, or make you misread the spelling of a common word. Imagine the following scenarios. Picture a pilot in the cockpit of an airplane affected by jamais vu. Suddenly, the controls feel completely unfamiliar. They might react slowly or mix up the sequence of flipping switches, leading to dangerous situations or even causing an aviation accident. Another example, when you're driving, especially on a highway, being absorbed by the space ahead of the windshield and the flow of scenery on either side can trigger jamais vu. You might momentarily forget where the gas pedal or brake is. Needless to say, jamais vu in such cases is extremely dangerous, isn't it? So how can we prevent this phenomenon? If you think you've never experienced jamais vu, think back to your school days. Have you ever been punished by having to write lines repeatedly or memorized English vocabulary by writing words over and over? A group of French scientists at the University of Grenoble Alpes proved they could induce the jamais vu experience in a lab by having volunteers perform such repetitive writing tasks. They even won an Ig Nobel Prize for it. The experiment was conducted as follows. 94 university student volunteers were asked to write a word repeatedly on paper as quickly as possible. During the process, volunteers were told they could stop whenever they felt like it, for any reason. Whether they felt something strange, got bored, or their hands grew tired. The scientists found that 70% of the time, volunteers stopped because they experienced something odd. The word they were writing suddenly seemed unfamiliar. It made them doubt whether the word was real, and if it was real, whether they were misspelling a common word. One volunteer shared, "The longer I looked at the words, the more they lost their meaning." Another reported, "My hand kept writing uncontrollably until I realized something was off. The word I was writing didn't seem right. It looked like a word, but it felt like it had no meaning. I wondered if someone had tricked me into thinking it was a real word." The scientists noted that this phenomenon began to appear after about 1 minute of repetitive writing, with volunteers writing around 33 words. The more familiar word, the faster the phenomenon occurred. For example, with the word the most common article in English, 55% of participants experienced this strange sensation after writing it 27 times. The researchers wrote in their study The phenomenon induced in this experiment is related to unfamiliar experiences in the real world, which we believe is Jamais Vu. The experiment by the scientists at the University of Grenoble, Alps, simply replicated what American psychologist Margaret Floyd Washburn did in 1907. In her study, Washburn asked volunteers to stare at a word for 3 minutes. The volunteers reported that familiar words became strange, fragmented, and lost their inherent meaning. Scientists explain that this phenomenon is related to a concept called unconscious inference, proposed by the 19th century physicist Hermann Helmholtz. This concept suggests that human perception is imperfect, but the brain unconsciously infers what the eyes see to create a complete picture, and these inferences can be correct or incorrect. This process has been ongoing since we were born. For example, anyone looking at the sky might unconsciously think the sun is moving, until they learn that it's actually the Earth moving around the sun. Chris Moulin, a professor at the Laboratory of Psychology and Neurocognition at the University of Grenoble, Alps, wrote in the study, "Jamais vu is a signal that something has become too automatic, too fluent, too repetitive. It helps us snap out of the current processing and the sense of unreality is, in fact, a reality check. Without Jamais Vu, humans might rely solely on unconscious inferences without verifying reality. This could lead to false beliefs such as the sun orbiting the earth being flat, or heavier objects falling faster than lighter ones." Professor Moulin added, "This has to happen, and it's logical. Our cognitive system must be flexible, allowing us to direct our attention where needed instead of getting lost in overall repetitive tasks." Challenging reality to break unconscious inferences is, in essence, what has helped humanity debunk many false beliefs. In a certain moment, we might think that Jamais Vu is what leads us to truth and drives the progress of science and society. Isaac Newton wouldn't have discovered the law of universal gravitation if he hadn't questioned something as oddly obvious as, why does an apple fall to the ground? Archimedes wouldn't have discovered the buoyant force named after him if he hadn't found it strange that people float in a bathtub. Many people mistake Jamais Vu for short-term memory loss. So, how are they different? To clearly see the distinction, we need to analyze specific examples. People with memory loss often feel unfamiliar with people or surroundings, even if they encountered them recently, because they've completely forgotten the related information. In contrast, those experiencing Jamais Vus have a different sensation. For example, when seeing their own child, they don't mistake them for someone else, but they feel that their child's features seem unusually different. They might also fail to recognize words they use daily or even doubt whether these words are meaningless. In general, the phenomenon called Jamais Vu is quite strange, and researchers struggle to explain its occurrence. Notably, it typically doesn't last long, just a few seconds to a few minutes. According to experts, we don't need to worry too much about Jamais Vu if it happens infrequently, as it only lasts briefly. However, if it occurs frequently and intensely, it's best to consult a neurologist. In summary, Jamais Vu remains a mystery to experts. While we know what Jamais Vu is, its causes are still unclear. But one thing is certain: if it happens to you multiple times, try to monitor and record it. Have you ever experienced this strange sensation? If so, leave a comment to share your experience. And if you find phenomena like Déjà Vu or Jamais Vu fascinating, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to explore more exciting videos coming up.